I'm Eleanor from the KU Natural History Museum, and this is Pop-Up Science Online. Today, we'll be talking about food chains and food webs. As we talk about the different parts that make up food chains, I'll be showing you a paper model that I made. And if you'd like to make your own model, check out our Museum from Home webpage and go to the Pop-Up Science tab, where you can find today's activity instructions and printable labels. While every living organism on Earth is unique in its own way, one thing that all have in common is the need for energy to grow and survive. Living things get energy from food, and energy is the ability to do work. Another way to think about energy is power exerted over time. And from a biology standpoint, that means the ability to cause some kind of change. And that change can result in heat, motion, sound, and growth, like how your bones become longer and bigger as you grow up. Energy flows between organisms when they eat or get eaten. So food chains are how energy moves through nature, with each living thing acting as a link in the food chain. And when we talk about energy and food chains, we need to start with the sun. Sunlight is a form of energy called electromagnetic energy. Plants absorb this sunlight energy and convert carbon dioxide and water into sugars, their food, plus oxygen as a byproduct. This chemical process, where plants use sunlight energy to produce sugars, is called photosynthesis. Because plants produce their own food in this way, when talking about food chains, ecologists refer to plants as producers. Producers are then eaten by herbivores, which are organisms that only eat plants. And ecologists refer to herbivores as primary consumers. We use the word consumers because animals can't produce their own food. They must eat or consume it. Examples of primary consumers include grasshoppers, butterflies, lacebugs, and phytoplankton even. Then, as we continue along the food chain, the animals that come afterward are carnivores and omnivores. They eat the primary consumer animals, so they are referred to as secondary consumers. You can think of frogs and shrews, all as different examples of secondary consumers. Tertiary or third level consumers are those that eat the secondary consumers, so like a snake eating a shrew. Generally, food chains top out at a quaternary or fourth level consumer, such as a fox eating the snake or a hawk eating a fox. Lastly, decomposers form the final link in the food chain. They break down dead animals and plants, returning nutrients back to the soil. You can think of decomposers as an ecosystem's cleanup crew. Some decomposers, like mushrooms and other types of fungi, can be seen without a microscope, but most decomposition is done by microorganisms like bacteria. See how each organism forms a link in my food chain model? Now that we've covered how basic food chains work, let's think a bit broader, because animals can occupy different consumer levels. Food availability varies seasonally and even by time of day. And some organisms, like mice, might occupy two consumer roles, eating insects on one occasion, making it a secondary consumer, but also eating plants, making it a primary consumer. These variations lead to complexity in ecosystems. And when animals from one food chain interact with animals from another, this forms a food web. Food webs show how several different food chains are related. The transfer of energy among all of the organisms in a particular ecosystem is represented in a food web. Organisms are interdependent in food webs, meaning that if one species disappears, the food web will change. Thinking about how interconnected all kinds of different life forms are helps us to understand that every species is essential for an ecosystem to stay healthy, no matter how big or small. And you can learn a lot about ecosystems by exploring within your own community right outside. What does a food web look like in your community? With your family, you can try spending time outside in your backyard or a nearby park, observing how different animals, plants, and even fungi are connected. Maybe you'll see a grasshopper eating a leaf, a hawk swooping down to catch a rabbit, or a hummingbird drinking flower nectar, or maybe even moss or mushrooms growing on a fallen tree trunk. You can even try keeping a nature journal as you observe energy exchange among organisms. And based on your observations, you can create a food web of your community. Check out the Make a Nature Journal activity from our Museum from Home webpage for more information about nature journals. And if you're interested in decomposers like those microorganisms I mentioned, be sure to try the Winogradsky column activity where you can learn how to build a mini microbial community. Last but not least, I want to address a common food chain misconception. Although for many years people used to say that humans are at the top of the food chain, ecologists have done scientific studies that show that that statement just isn't true. In 2013, a group of researchers analyzed the rank of many different species, including humans, on the food chain, and they found that on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the score of a primary producer, a plant, and then 5 being the score of an apex predator, a carnivore that has no predators of its own, like a crocodile, the researchers found that based on diet, humans get an average score of 2.2. That puts us roughly equal in terms of food chain position with pigs because we are omnivores that eat both plants and animals. Thanks for joining me today. I hope that you had fun and learned something new. And I will plan to see you next month on July 18th for a pop-up program all about the science of sound. Bye!